is the story of Qadhi Al-Maristhan, whose name is Muhammad ibn Abdul Baqir. Muhammad ibn Abdul Baqir is a young person who lives in Mecca, and on those days, life is difficult. There is no institutions that would pay him. He is living roughly, and provisions is so little one day hunger drives him out of his home where he's looking for something to eat. He doesn't have any money to spend on himself for buying something to eat. While he is walking in the streets, he looks down and sees a bag, a sack, a purse. He go down to pick it up, take it to home. He opens it and says, "I have never seen a pearl necklace like this before, dazzling, and in a nice purse." So he goes. Then he hears outside a man calling in the middle of crowd, "O people, whoever has found a sack of pearls of mine, I will give you 500 dinar, 500 gold coins." The young man think to himself, "I'll go out, and I'll give the man the bag, and maybe can get benefit from the 500 dinar because he is offering it as a reward." So he goes. He walks out and saw the elderly man and invites him in. He asks the elderly man, as is the sunnah of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, describe the sack. So the elderly man describes it, with the material that's in there and the tie that's on it. And then the young man asks, "Describe what's in it." And the elderly man describes it. Then the young man says, "Describe the string of the necklace." Then the elderly man describes it precisely, the young man sure that the old man is the owner of the sack. So this Qadhi Al-Maristhan, young student at this stage, gives him the sack back, gives him the purse of pearls back. Then the man gives him 500 dinar as his promise. And this is where you see the taqwa of a righteous person. The young man thinks that he has no right on that money, because essentially the old man owned it, and he has just returned it. That's his right. So he said, "No, I don't want it. The good is yours." The elderly man insists, "Listen, I give it out of my free will." And the Qadhi said, "No, I can't take it." So after thanking to the young man, then the elderly man go. The time passed, and this young man travels from Makkah to another land in search of knowledge and teaching. He boards a boat to cross the sea. The boat shattered. A storm comes and breaks the boat. Everyone are drowned. All their wealth and stuff drowned with it. The young man just hold on to a plank and kind of being tossed and turned by the waves, and eventually it lands on a shore. The young man drags himself up, and he walks inland. Then he finds a masjid, and he sits in it. While he is sitting there again, the righteous individual is busy, probably reading Quran and other activities, when local people time for salah comes, and they come to masjid. The local people look at him, and alhamdulillah, the sign of piety and religious is on him. Then they ask, "Can you lead the salah?" He answers, "Sure." So he goes. He moves forward and lead the salah. They like his voice, and they like that he could read. So people gather around him and ask, "Can you teach us the Quran and be our imam?" He obliged because his situation is dire. From this Allah Azza wa Jalla sent some provision his way. People would pay, and there was a stipend assigned to him for being the imam. He continues his life like this, because he stays there some time, and then he finds in the side of the masjid some parchment, some writings of Quran. He looks at it and he starts to read it. The people see that he can read. Then they ask, "You can read and write?" He says, "Yes, I can read and write." "Then you can take our children read and write," people say. Then they brought their kids and enrolled them with him, and they increase his pay. One day the people say to him, "Listen, we can't let you leave this place. You have to stay here, and you have to teach our kids. And because you're staying here, you know you're a young man, you need to get married. We have a young orphan girl here who has some wealth left to her, so why don't you marry her?" The young man refuses, but they insists, so he eventually relents. He accepts to marry the girl. The people give him a condition that in those days he is prohibited to see her later on until the wedding night. He accepted. At the wedding night, the lady came into the wedding chamber, and he looks up and on her neck, and his eyes are caught by a necklace. And he's just sitting there, be glued to the necklace, and the poor orphan girl is thinking like, "Hello, I'm here." And this guy's eyes are just on the necklace, so the girl felt he is a very materialistic person. His eyes are focused on the necklace only, and he doesn't care about her, he only looks after her wealth. So she complains to the locals people. The locals came to him and says, "What did you do, you? You broke the heart of an orphan, you know." Then he says, No, there's a story," which people ask. So what's the story? He explains, when I was in Mecca and I was walking, I found this purse, and I opened it, and there was pearls in there. And an old man came and confessed that he owned it and want it back. Then I gave it to him, and he offered me 500 dinar, and I said no. He continued tell them, and that same pearl is on her neck. Then they started to say, Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar. They started screaming until everyone in the island gathered. The young man is confused. What's going on? They go tell the man, there's a story. That old man came here. This is where he was. He used to make a pray, O Lord, I have not seen a more decent man than that young man. Please return him to me, so that I could marry my daughter to him. But he passed away, and Allah Azza wa Jalla accepted his pray and brought you here. And subhanallah, you married the girl. And not only that, the pearl necklace is still within his family. And this is the verse of Allah Azza wa Jalla. If you live Allah conscious and persevere. He did the difficult days, but then Allah will recompense. Your reward will not perish, it will come. Just be patient, persevere. Bear the difficulty, wait a little bit longer. It's dark as just before fudge of time. May Allah Azza wa Jalla will grant you the capacity to bear difficulty and the path of Allah Azza wa Jalla. And may Allah grant you ease and comfort.